Game day, we take the entire day. The entire day is game day.
We play next week. Where you all going?
I couldn't tell you.
I can't remember if you guys are going to be on Thursdays.
Friday, just Friday. Friday. I think the only Thursday game, Thursday lead day one that was against Westport. Just because it was so far.
Yeah.
That drives.
Well, we should have charter bus. What was it, 12 hours, 10 hours? So we used to take, I took students every year to either DC or New York, so DC is about 12 hours. And we would sleep all night on the bus to save money on hotels to make it as affordable as possible. But then when we go to New York, it was 16 hours. And that extra 4 hours was just so hard. I'm like, just take that girl. Just take that. But we'd watch movies, it was just, we'd play games, I kept drawing, try to, there's only so much sitting there that you can do without going to sleep. How'd the game last night go? One of the girls yesterday that was on a visit with Gracie, my daughter, her official tour, goes to OHS and wanted to play volleyball. Her name is Jill Gaia. She's awesome.
I'm not gonna lie, my brain is.
You're fine. I'm just saying she's awesome.
Like I'm literally.
I've been thinking about coach about her too because she was in NHS, like she's a great student. She would be she's small but she's good. Right. She's really good. She's good at thinking. She just works hard. And I think she might do track too. Really wants to play volleyball. So and her brother went here. He was actually the one on the tournament here instead of her parents. They were working. And he also a brother who was in the line and I taught him. And Joel was in NHS with me. So yeah. I'm so sorry. I feel like I didn't take you out to do it.
It's okay.
Or like, get you a gift card, or hey, or maybe go to the Panda Foot Spa with me. We'll get our feet.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about doing that today anyway. If I can sneak away. How do you get to be important enough?
Oh, I'm not important. I'm not important. Jesus.
I love you. Hey, make your way in.
Yeah, I thought when I first came in the room, We were in Roseville in Florida.
Oh my God.
Excuse me, I'm Laura Rudolph. I'm the Director of Career Engagement. So I just wanted to introduce myself. I haven't met all of you. We appreciate you all coming out. We have a great roundup of speakers and a full house, so we're excited about that. For those of you who are here for homecoming this week and this weekend, we try to make it a full immersion experience. We have lots of activities that go up late into the night, and then we start early the next morning with a 5K. So if you were an athlete before, it reminds you of your experience back then. You stay up late and you study, and then you have to start first thing in the morning. We have a lot of current students, so I know you guys, you basketball players, are used to that too, except when coach makes you go to bed early. Okay, so we appreciate you coming, and I'm going to first introduce Dr. Cousins, our provost. He is going to have a few remarks for you guys, and then I will come back up and I will introduce our speakers. Dr. Cousins.
Well, I'll say thanks so much for coming out this morning. I just have a few comments. First of all, thanks so much to Laura and to Summer and to Eddie Kenny, obviously the whole advancement team for putting on today's event. When they came to me with the idea for a lecture series at 9 a.m. on a Saturday, I said, consider naming it something else, but this seems to work, so I appreciate that. I also want to say how nice it is to be around average-sized people again. I spend most of my days like this, so it's nice to be able to stand up straight and look people straight in the eye. That's nice. The Pillars Lecture Series is a wonderful idea. We appreciate the opportunity to hear from our alumni return, Dr. Magnuson, our faculty. So last year we brought in a full panel of faculty, and that worked, but the spirit of homecoming weekend is about kind of mutual learning. Yesterday, Thursday and Friday were full days of trustee meetings, and Kentucky Wesleyan relies on the intelligence, the experience, the wisdom of our trustees to help guide the institution. Everything that you see around you is built by alumni. We don't get state funding. So this is all us together, working together to achieve great success for our students and have that longevity. So the institution relies on you all. And this is very much in keeping of that spirit. So bringing back alumni to share their successes as they go off and achieve great success in the business world, and then come back and share their experiences is phenomenal. It's a wonderful thing to be surrounded by alumni all week and to be able to sit and just hear their stories and their stories from Greek life or athletics or usually most of the stories revolve around Professor Magnuson and stalwarts blowing things up. And we're still finding interesting remnants of Dr. Magnuson's days here. We found some picric acid the other day, which is an explosive. So they were doing some wild stuff back then. We appreciate that. So enjoy today. Thanks so much for coming out. We hope that you'll come back next year. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay, let's get started. So we're going to start off, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, and that is the aforementioned Dr. W.L. Magnuson. Dr. Magnuson began as a professor of chemistry at Kentucky Wesleyan in 1969 and has been a pillar, no pun intended, of the Kentucky Wesleyan community ever since. Since officially retiring in 2018, Dr. Magnuson has continued his involvement through the Magnuson Scholars Program and the Ellie Magnuson Lecture Series. He was officially recognized as a Professor Emeritus of Chemistry in 2018. Dr. Magnuson.
Come on, my students never gave me an applause, so don't give me an applause. Can you hear me okay? I don't like microphones. When she called me, Laura called me and said, would you do a 15-minute lecture? I said, are you kidding me? I've always been scheduled for 50 minutes, but normally my students know 55 to 60 minutes was normal. So after 15 minutes, would you just cut me off? I'm sure I can't regulate my time. As the academic semesters get shorter and shorter, chemistry faculty are under a lot of pressure to cover material that they feel is so very important. So because of that, the human side of science is kind of neglected. They just don't have time. But many really important discoveries were made by brilliant scientists working for long, hard years, or other discoveries were made by accidents. But those accidents were followed up by intelligent, brilliant, inspiring scientists that led to great things. I just want to give you a few examples. Going back to the 1840s, natural rubber, I don't know if anybody knows anything about natural rubber. It's useless. It's a gummy, sticky mess. Not useful for anything. Impoverished, an inventor, American inventor, Charles Goodyear, was experimenting with natural rubber. And the story goes, he had a container of very hot natural rubber, and he accidentally spilled sulfur in this rubber. Well, rubber consists of just links of chains of carbon atoms. Black represents carbon atoms. It's kind of like a gum. It's useless. But when he spilled that sulfur in there, something happened. Those chains of rubber were now connected by sulfur. And this caused the sulfur to become semi-solid and very pliable. And because of that, for many years after that, many companies made hundreds of millions of dollars using this called vulcanized rubber to make rubber tires. And yet Charles Goodyear died leaving his wife in poverty. He did not profit that. But before he died, he made this statement, which I like to read. It's kind of a nice statement. He said, "I am not disposed to complain that I have planted and others have gathered the fruit. A man has cause to regret only when he sows and no one reaps." So that's Charles Goodyear. 1898, the Goodyear Rubber and Tire Company was formed in honor of his name, Charles Goodyear. And most of us had Goodyear tires on our car at one time or other. Skipping over to the late 1890s, a brilliant physicist, Becquerel, in France, he was studying the newly discovered X-rays just a few years before, using photographic plates. He had some photographic plates in a drawer, dark drawer, and he went to use these, and he found these plates were already exposed. They were no good. And he said, what's going on? So he looked at that drawer, and he remembered he had little chunks of some uranium ore. So what he realized with this uranium ore was emitting spontaneously some kind of radiation that developed these plates. And that was the discovery of radioactivity. So in 1903, he won a Nobel Prize for his discovery. Marie Curie was also working in his lab, so Becquerel encouraged her to continue working with radiation. So by accident, she found some other samples of uranium ore, but they emitted a radiation much more intense than the previous ore. So studying that, she realized there must be something in there that's causing this immense radiation. It turned out that she identified a new element and isolated that element. It was later named polonium in honor of her native country, Poland. And because of that, she received a Nobel Prize in 1911. So, skipping over a few years, early 1900s, in Germany, a very prominent chemist, Fritz Haber, was working, trying to make a reaction with elementary nitrogen from the air and hydrogen. But eventually he developed a process in which it was very effective function to take this little molecule, represented blue by helium, nitrogen, this little molecule of hydrogen, represented by white. Under certain conditions, he was able to produce this little simple molecule in H3. It's called ammonia. In my opinion, these two molecules, ammonia and water, are the most important two molecules to mankind. Because without ammonia and its derivatives, used as fertilizers, there will not be enough food to feed the world's population. And because of that, Fritz Haber in 1915 received a Nobel Prize. But I call this kind of a version of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Clint Eastwood, good, bad, and ugly. So this was really, really good. But also, he was able to form another molecule that consists of carbon, chlorine, and sulfur. And the official name of this is dichlorodiethyl sulfur, which is a brownish, yellowish substance that smells like mustard. Fritz Haber, even though he was a scientist, was an officer in World War I, and he directed his troops to take this molecule that smelled like sulfur, that we now know as sulfur gas. And because he used sulfur gas to fight the French and English troops, more than 100,000 of these soldiers died or were disabled. That's what we must guess. That's the ugly part. But he rationalized his involvement with this by this statement. He said, in peacetime, a scientist belongs to the world. But in wartime, a scientist belongs to his country. So he defended him for Germany. His wife, a brilliant PhD in chemistry herself, could not accept that. So she and her son both committed suicide because of his involvement with mustard gas. Moving on to a little more pleasant thing. Wallace Carothers in 1935, working with DuPont, was trying to develop a synthetic fiber. And so he chose various things, but by accident he chose two molecules, which the red represents oxygen. So this is a molecule containing oxygen and carbon, and this molecule contained carbon and nitrogen. And he was able to put these together to form something like this. But this molecule then combined on this oxygen with the nitrogen in to make a longer molecule. And that nitrogen then combined with another molecule on oxygen to make a longer molecule. And so on and so on and so on. And this became a usable fiber that we now call nylon. In 1940, there were 4 million nylon stockings sold in 4 days. and you know who bought them. But a few years later in World War II, it helped to win World War II because Japan had cut off the world supply of silk. And nylon was used to make the parachutes that were used in World War II. Very instrumental and important. About the same time, in the late 1930s, Roy Puckett, also working with DuPont, a very brilliant person. I mentioned Carruthers before I go to Puckett. Carruthers was depressed that he could not do something more significant after making nylon. So at the age of 41, he committed suicide. So a little bit later, in the late 1930s, Roy Puckett was working with a gas, small molecule that contained only carbon and fluorine. And the official name of this, 4-fluoro, so it's called tetrafluoroethylene. It was in a gas form in a cylinder very much like this. But he got involved in another project for several months, and he left that project alone. So a few months later, he decided, well, I'm going to go back and study this little molecule again, this tetrafluoroethylene. So he opened up the valve, nothing came out. So you and I, we opened the valve, nothing came out, and said, gotta get a new cylinder of gas. But he was more inquisitive than that. He said, there's something wrong. So he had this cylinder taken down to the machine shop, and the welders removed part of it, opened it up, and he found at the bottom of that a white solid, at least a semi-solid. Not a gas, a white solid. So what's going on? Well, what's going on is that this little molecule combined with another molecule. So now there's two molecules connected. That's called a dimer. But then that reacted with a third molecule, and that's called a trimer. And the fourth molecule is called a tetramer. 4, tetramer. Penta. 10 is what? Deca. Many we call polymere. So what happened, these little molecules became a big molecule. And the official name is polytetrafluoroethylene. But now we call it Teflon. Teflon was discovered completely by accident. One of the first uses of Teflon was the lining inside of gas cylinders that contained uranium hexafluoride, which was important in the Manhattan Project. A few years later, in 1950, a French scientist said, well, let's take Teflon, since it's so inert to reactions and temperature. He made plastic coating cookware. Your Teflon skillets are due to Roy Puckett. So very accidental, important discovery. One other discovery was a German scientist made this little molecule here. The orange, I'm going to call fluorine. So this is dichlorofluoromethane. We now call this Freon. Freon in the late 30, 1940, was used by General Motors, who owned Frigidaire. It became the refrigerant. All of our air conditioning units, our refrigeration units, etc. That's the good part. The bad and the ugly part, in 1970, Sherwood Rowland at the University of California in Irvine studied this because he knew that this is a light molecule. Once it gets in the atmosphere, it goes up in the air, and this was the primary villain that was destroying our ozone. That's the other part. So, he went in front of Congress, showed out this was so detrimental to the environment, and because of that, almost 200 countries in the world now ban the production and the use of freon. So in 1995, Sherwood Rowland received a Nobel Prize. The closest I've come to a Nobel Prize at the University of Kansas. I was on the same intramural softball team with Sherwood Rowland. Thank you.
As I said in the beginning, we have a variety of speakers, so next we'll move from chemistry to storytelling. Our second speaker, Jeff Jones, he is an educator and a professional storyteller. He's a past president of the Kentucky Storytellers Association, and he's presented many workshops on storytelling. He loves telling stories and sharing his craft with people of all ages. Jeff, I know personally, 27 years in education. He was a social studies teacher, a coach, and currently an administrator in the McLean County school systems. He has resided in Owensboro for over 30 years. Jeff Jones.
Dr. Madison, she told me 10 minutes.
She told me later, 10, I said, I
10 minutes. Okay, thank you, sir. I'm going to talk about storytelling. This is the two cool things about it. One, we're already storytellers. We do it, it's in our brains. We've done it for thousands and thousands of years. We're storytellers. And it's your superpower. All right, young fellas, I got some stuff just for you today, too. So this is going to be helpful. We've had famous storytellers all through our history. Abraham Lincoln drove his cabinet crazy because he wanted to tell stories to get his point across. And they couldn't, but they finally got to the point where they didn't appreciate, but maybe they tolerated his storytelling and went along with it. Of course, we're all familiar, maybe Winston Churchill. There was no way the British could have taken on the Germans and there was no way. But he got his people to believe, and they believed. And then we got involved, and that helped them out a bunch for sure. But his people believed based on his storytelling. And then, of course, Walt Disney. Every story, we all have grown up with Walt Disney stories. That Plato said the one who tells stories is the one who rules. And Steve Jobs said the most powerful person in the world is storytelling. First, we got to talk about our brains a little bit. There's an Italian scientist named Giacomo Rizzolatti. And they were testing, they had monkeys, and they were trying to figure out their brain patterns as to what the monkey was doing. So they got all their monitors up there, and so if the monkey's sleeping, they see one part of the brain fire up, and if the monkey is eating, another part would fire up. If a monkey was playing, another area of the brain. So they're trying to map the brain out based on what the activity is doing. And then one of his assistants one day gets there's a monkey in the cage right there, just watching him, doing nothing. And this guy gets his lunch out and starts eating his lunch, and he looks up at the monitor. The monkey's eating area fired up. He's not even eating, but it fired up. That's where they discovered mirror neurons. We all have them. We have mirror neurons. I can give you a good example. Somebody yawns, and we yawn. And I have my students a lot of times, we do a little test on this, and this works great. As you're going along, if you see someone and you're walking down the halls and you smile at them, about 90% of the time they'll smile back. They don't want to, maybe, but it's just our mirror neurons are communicating. That's a great thing for storytelling. Because you can set the stage on how you tell that story, and you can get your audience to buy in and go along. Now, the other thing is, some of this, when you use your mirror neurons, it creates these memories. They last weeks, months, years. For example, I'm going to read a little statement, and some of us are going to cringe. With her long fingernails, she scraped down the blackboard. The young people don't know that because they have whiteboards and do that. But us veterans, we know what that, and it's just like, oh my gosh, that feels horrible. So we have these, neural pathways, things like that we have to talk about. We'll get to that in just a second. So the other experiment, there's a couple other experiments where a guy at Princeton, Uri Hassan, he's doing a study. He's looking at brain areas, and he has one guy telling a story, and the storytelling part is lit up, and another guy listening to the story. His storytelling area lights up too. So they've connected. Even if they couldn't see each other, they still connected. And then an amazing experiment. They were testing mapping. Once again, they had electrodes on people. One person was looking at scenes of wildlife. One person was looking at food. There's flashing these images. One person was geometric designs. So all these different brain areas were lighting up on these 5 different people. Then they started telling, on their headsets, they started hearing the story. All 5 brain patterns went to the same place in the brain. So this is a way, using stories is a way to connect. Now I'm going to touch on 3 areas. We could touch on hundreds. 3 areas. 1, learning. They say 40% of us learn visually when we see things, 40% auditory, we hear things, and 20% are kinesthetic, where you hands-on. You got to kind of physically experience. Here's a great thing about storytelling. For the visual learners, while they're hearing, they're creating mental pictures so they can see it, what's going on. For the auditory learners, they're listening to the words and the voice and the inflection, how it goes up and down, and they're putting all that together. All right? Kinesthetic is still, it causes you to have emotions, where you have feelings, and that helps make connections. So you're thinking about that on that emotional level. So that's kind of the kinesthetic level as well. And storytelling does all that for you. The other cool thing is that when you're listening to stories or telling stories, it releases some brain hormones. These are the good things. One is cortisol. Now, cortisol is usually for our response, like our reflexes, fight or flight, things like that. But also cortisol, it wouldn't do us any good if we just had to decide to run or that. It also helps make memories. So if you have one experience, whether an angry dog barking at you, you remember that. So the next time it happens, you don't have to sit there and think, let's see, am I afraid of dogs or no? I can't. No, it's there. So cortisol comes out. Also, dopamine, which is dopamine is called brain candy or the brain cocaine is what the scientists call it. It gives us pleasure. It's our pleasure center. It gives us satisfaction. Also motivates us. Oxytocin. It's important. It's one of those things, fellas. Oxytocin creates closeness. The females that have babies are flooded with oxytocin because when the baby is born, then you need that comforting, and they need to connect with their baby. And so it's really good. But the storytelling does the same thing, whereas we have that power to connect with others. So it makes storytellers likable. It helps make them memorable. Things like that. So it is certainly a power that you have. Second reason for storytelling is to laugh. All right? Now, when we share laughter, it decreases our stress. It helps relationships. Females have already mentioned they like the top 3 things that girls are looking for in a mate. They want somebody that has a plan. They know that they have a plan. They will be able to provide for them. The second thing is they want somebody that's healthy. They don't want to take care of somebody. They have to do that. They want somebody that's healthy. And the third thing, sense of humor. They always pick the guys that can tell the funny stories, and they always pick the guys that tell the good jokes and things like that. So laughter stimulates a lot of things for us. It helps our heart, our lungs, our muscles, and it really increases connection because it increases interest. So many people you're always more interested. It also shows that sometimes people that seem to be the ones that can tell the best stories, they are judged as the most accomplished, the best leaders, and the ones that have the most power in a company or in an organization. It may not be true, but they get that going, so they have a chance to develop those things to make sure it is true. If you tell funnier stories, your likability goes way off the charts, and that's good. Now, one other thing. You'll know the answers. Just go ahead and yell out the answers. Name a mouse that stands on 2 legs.
Mickey.
All right. Name a duck that stands on 2 legs. Okay, no, all ducks stand on 2 legs, okay? But I knew you were going to say Donald, or some people that say Daffy. But that's just one of those things that you can get people to laugh really quickly, and now you'll all go tell that story. I know you will. You're going to be telling that joke all day. That's good, because it's good to connect with those things. Using it in school or business for PowerPoints. Has anybody experienced death by PowerPoint? I've died so many times. Yes. Put humor in your PowerPoint. Just every once in a while. This is wrong, but I was a young teacher. I've never been a young teacher. I was earlier on. I had a picture of a handsome fella. We'd just be going along, and all of a sudden a handsome fella, and I said, okay, ladies, that's for you. There's a 6-pack, you can see that. And then the next one, okay, fellas, here's your 6-pack, and there was a 6-pack of beer. So, it breaks it up a little bit, or you can reset your brain, and that helps out a bunch like that. Just nice images sometimes in the middle of your PowerPoint, or using humor, putting a funny quote in that. Man, people want to pay attention a lot more. Because our brains are so fast, they've already read everything that's on the screen. They can read so much faster than you can speak, and so it would really help. The last area you need to consider is love. There's an old story that hasn't been, Ernest Hemingway researchers cannot find evidence that he actually wrote this, but apparently there was a contest amongst other writers to write the shortest story. And he wrote this story, for sale, baby shoes, never worn. Man, that's a bummer. That is, you think, oh my gosh. And then you start thinking, oh, those poor people. And I wonder what that situation was like and what did they do? That's your empathy coming up now. You have empathy, and you also are going to experience some love. You love those people for all that they've gone through. That's such a sad thing. So when we're around our families, we tell stories. You tell stories at the dinner table. You just tell stories at the weddings and things like that. When you watch TV together, you remember your vacations that you went on, and you always have those old stories that bring up. My brother and I go to car races together, and we tell the same stories from our childhood. You remember that? And then when, his version, he's a little younger than me, so his version is different than mine, and so we always share all those something, or when we do those stories. My grandson, I got a grandson that's 6, and he's kind of a quiet fella. But I've done ghost stories at Lake Rudolph and some other places, and he kind of likes to go. The other day, we're sitting on the couch, and he goes, "What are waves? What causes waves?" And I'm like, "Oh, crap." Well, I said, he's 6, and I'm thinking, I've heard it has something to do with the moon and the gravity. It pulls them in, and they go by. That feels. I think far out, we can't see, there's a big hand. And that big hand pushes the water, and the water comes up, and that's what creates waves. And I said, well, how does it make it? That would be all the same size with it. He goes, well, when he's mad, he really pushes it hard. He's my storyteller. I can't wait, because that kid's going to be awesome. So, we have our emotions strengthened when we tell stories. We also... It evolves when we get to we solve problems by telling stories a lot. Also, one other survey, ladies rated good storytellers as more attractive and better mates as opposed to poor storytelling. So, storytelling is your superpower. All right? We use it, you can use it anywhere, but at work it's powerful. At dinner it's powerful. Teaching your children is powerful. Now, I want to thank Ms. Rudolph for inviting me here today. I appreciate you all coming here today. I'm telling you, this is your superpower. You need to start using it every chance you get. And now I'm going to use my mirror neurons and say goodbye. Now!
Okay, the only thing I'm concerned about with that is that advice to all our young guys to tell stories to girls, and I'm like, I don't know about that. Okay, our final speaker, who I know some of our young guys who are here who are waiting for. So our third and final speaker is George Tinsley. So he's going to talk about turning obstacles into opportunities, and he's an alumnus from 1969. Born and raised in poverty in Louisville's Smoketown, Tinsley was a mediocre student who found success as an athlete. Athletic scholarships made his college education possible. He played professional basketball and leveraged his athletic career and academic achievements into a successful business. With organizational and leadership skills, Tinsley built and leads 2 companies that operate over 60 restaurants in Florida and Kentucky. He has also received numerous honorary doctorates and has been inducted into several halls of fame for his athletic and business accomplishments and civic leadership. So I would like to welcome George Tinsley.
kidding. Good morning. Good morning. I just went to school, learned about science and storytelling. So some of it, I'm glad my wife wasn't here to hear all that stuff, because I don't think she doesn't think my stories are funny at all. So I'm glad that she wasn't here, and that may not work all the time. But it's a privilege and an honor for me to be back here at Kentucky Wesleyan and spend some quality time with you. I have the basketball team here who are dear to my heart, my fraternity, Sigma Alpha Mu is dear to my heart, and some former professors, and of course, Joe Root back there who's talking to someone and not paying attention. Dean Root? Dean Root? Dean Root? I just got through talking about you. I had to acknowledge him because he saved my life here at Wesleyan several times. We'll keep it between the two of us. what actually happened. So I'm going to talk to you about obstacles, opportunities. That's kind of my tagline. I've got a book out called The Determined Entrepreneur. Corey, I got to get it into the library here so that it can be shared. I understand it's on Barnes & Noble shelf now. I've got another book, autobiography, that we're working on right now, that it's also going to be an audio book that talks about my life's legacy, so which some may find interesting. But as mentioned, the obstacles that I encountered in life as I got older and matriculated through school, it got a little bit better as far as dealing with. And of course, when I entered here at Kentucky Wesleyan, the whole world changed. The greatest 4 years of my life, even today. With all my success in business and other things, those 4 years here were great. And I love everything about Kentucky Wesleyan and try to be as involved with Wesleyan as much as I can. Excuse me, I live in Florida now. But as mentioned, I was adopted. My mother left me with a babysitter. That babysitter was 65 years old, couldn't read or write, and we got a $65 check. As a baby, she was 65. I was a baby. She took care of me the best she can. She showed me all kinds of love. We moved around Louisville, Harris Creek, Kentucky, which is called Prospect now, and we survived the best we could. And during that time, I developed resources and skills for survival, using the brain, if you will. And so as different things hit me as I grew up, integration came along, the black school closed, we were moved to white school. Half of the students were put back a year because we were on a different curriculum. And so that adjustment, I'm already 6 foot at the time, and back to another grade. That was a big obstacle there. Overcame that. My 6th grade teacher called me up one day and said, "George, you need to just quit school and go to work. Believe it or not, school teacher. So I just smiled at her, went and sat back down, and for the next 5 years, every time I achieved something, I always went back to that elementary school and just said, "Hello." I jumped passing. I just got a scholarship to Kentucky Wesleyan College. We just won a national championship. I just went to Africa and Europe. And so to let her know that she misjudged me. But it also spurred me on to become a little bit better student. I was fortunate enough to play pretty good basketball at a level and get a scholarship offer here at Wesleyan with Coach Guy Strong and another teammate that I had at Louisville Mill High School, Dallas Thornton. They were here, so it made it easier for me to make that decision to come here. I arrived at Kentucky Wesleyan with a little bag, with everything I had in that bag. Dallas Thornton, 6'4", me 6'5", and a guard, Van Stennett, at 6 foot. We came in a Corvette, 2-seater Corvette, if you can believe that. And Van took every opportunity to show us how fast that damn thing would go. As we turned corners, scared us white. That's how bad it was. But we got here, and so that's where it all started. So coming into Wesleyan, I was a C student, C, B, some classes, so I didn't have good study habits. We had music appreciation and New Testament and so forth. Early mornings here at Wesleyan on the 3rd floor, I fell asleep and I failed each one of those classes. And I just didn't have good study habits. So by the end of my freshman year, I was on academic probation, 1.75, I think, grade point average. We'd won the national championship in basketball, because I came here, honestly, to be a basketball player, to play basketball. But I understood that they went together, you know, going to class, passing, and playing basketball. They all worked together. So we won that first championship. We went to Europe and Africa teaching basketball. That was a whole new experience. 3 black guys and 7, 8 white guys going into Africa and experiencing all of those experiences that you can have over there. But it bonded us as a group. We had guys from Nebo, Kentucky, Tommy Hopgood, Whitesville, Hazard, places where, you know, it wasn't a lot of racial interactions going on. So we had to work very hard to make that adjustment. All of us working together to do that, because in our neighborhoods there weren't a lot of white people either. So that meshing had to happen. And winning really helped make that happen. We went to Africa, came back, jumped right into the season, and I made a determination I would get off probation, which I did, and started going to summer school. Well, at the end of my 4 years, I'm going to jump through some of this. And if you have any questions, you can ask me later, since I'm the last one. So at the end of the 4 years, I was on the dean's list. I received the Oak and Abbey Award, the highest award that Kentucky Wesleyan can offer. We won 3 national championships, and my junior year, my wife, who was my girlfriend, became my girlfriend, came on campus, and we met, went to the Sadie Hawkins dance, and it was over. You know, I don't know if they still do it today, but those days the girls chased the guys, put the tag around. Okay, so that's solidified the beginning anyway, and so we later became king and queen of the campus, first black king and queen of Wesleyan. Then I joined the Sigma Alpha Mu fraternity. That changed my life, because I met a group of guys that became bonded with and learned how to study, how to do study meetings together and so forth. And grade point averages kept popping up, and we moved on. Made All-American in 68, 69, won 2 more championships. Well, we went to the finals actually in 66, which was actually our best team in Kentucky. Was probably the greatest team that's ever played here. But we came in 3rd place. We got beat by Earl Monroe. And that was a game that I didn't play. So I can't take credit for that loss. I tell my teammates that all the time. You all lost. If I'd been there, we would have won the game. No, seriously, I hate to miss that. But I met some great people here who became lifelong friends. Our freshman group that came in, 5 of us, 6 of us, we all graduated on time. And we all still, well, 4 of us anyway, still remain great friends, as well as some of the other guys that were either before or after that we've been together all of those years since the early 60s. And that's quite remarkable that we support one another. Last night, Dallas Thornton got inducted into the Alumni Hall of Fame, and we made sure we came in to support him. So, been very fortunate to be inducted into a number of different Hall of Fames here at Wesleyan, 3 I think, and being named the greatest player, the basketball player that ever played here. There's number 2s here, that one there in the back. So I always try to drive that home, because I gotta, you gotta make it understand number 2. So, but there were a number of different obstacles that jumped out there, and it was my goal to always accomplish and overcome those things. As I graduated, went on, played in the ABA. In the ABA being very weak, got bumped around from team to team. I played 3 years, played with 4 different teams. And then it all came to an end. And I had an education to fall back on. And all of those skills that I learned matriculating through elementary and on, I was able to use and pull on at some particular time because my confidence was developing. When I hit Wesleyan, I had no self-esteem, no confidence in a lot of things that I was doing. But as I spent time here at Wesleyan, getting to class 15 minutes early, staying late, going to summer school and all of those different things, getting close to the Bob Cochrans of the world. He was my favorite teacher during my time here. We spent a lot of time talking and learning, and teaching me. It really helped me become educated, if you will. So that developed on. My career after that, coaching, teaching, and then getting into working with KFC, working with the Colonel, which was an overwhelming event. When the very first time I met him and he and I teaching the business of KFC, I had no idea about business, so I had to do a crash course and learning hands-on and actually being in the environment. But once again, I pulled from those skills in athletics and team, working together as a team and paying attention and listening. All that, it all came together for me as I started in that career. I worked with KFC for 8 years in various different departments, managed everything from Kentucky to Hawaii, human resources, operations, franchising. Then I got an opportunity to become my own franchisee, become a franchisee in '84. And our first restaurant we opened was $1 million restaurant. Average KFC at the time was only doing about $650,000. So we were doing $1 million. 3 years down the road, that restaurant caught on fire, burned down. You know, the average person would have been ready to, commit harikiri. But given where I came from, I knew I could do it because I built it from the ground up, brick by brick. No one gave it to me. I built it brick by brick. While standing and watching that restaurant burn down, I saw these lunch trucks lined up on the street. So the idea came to me, let's get a truck, put a warming cabinet in it, put a register in it, and let's go to I had 4 restaurants at the time, and go load that truck up and drive around the city of Winter Haven selling chicken out of the truck. $1,500 a day. And that was in 1990. And so lunch trucks weren't, those were called Roachmobiles, I think, at the time. So I did that and brought that truck back to that burned down site at the end of the, and I'm skipping through a lot of this, but I brought that truck back to the end, to the burned down site to let people know we were coming back. When we closed, we were doing $1 million. When 65 days later, when I reopened it, I made adjustments because of the crowd that we were getting, the customer flow, the throughput, and so forth. Reopened it. That restaurant did $2.5 million. So God was looking out for me. And I thank Him every day. So that was another obstacle. I could go on and on with a number of different things, such as the TGI Fridays that we went to put a KFC there, lost that bid. Saw a white tablecloth open, restaurant was still there, nobody bid on. We bid on it, turned it into a TGI Fridays. We proposed about $2.5 million for that TGI Fridays as the annual sales. We opened it, and within 3 years, we were doing $9 million a year. #1 TGI Fridays in the nation. Okay? And remember, we lost the bid, came back, watched O.J. Simpson driving through Los Angeles, said, well, we're not having as bad a day as he is. And so we went back and we put our heads together, bid on with the TGI Fridays, and it turned out to be a success. So once again, that's some of the obstacles to opportunities that I have encountered in my life. And I'm saying me or I want to make sure I include my wife because she was my partner, has been my partner since day one. and she takes care of the dots. She dots the I's and crosses the T's. I'm the big picture guy, you know. Let's get it done and make it perfect. So I would say to you, each one of you, that you will encounter things that are going to get you down. You're going to have to deal with. You feel like it's not working. You got to just take a step back, suck it up, and go back at it again. Don't let anything keep you from reaching your goal. If you have to go around, over top, or straight through, let's just make it happen. Have faith and confidence in what you do, and you'll be successful. In this basketball team, you're gonna be successful if you work together and stick together what I've seen so far. Follow the lead, believe in what it's all about, and you'll be successful. Give it your best effort. When you walk off that court, if you're not tired, if you don't feel you have left it there, then go back again the next day. Let's make it happen. All right? You can do that. This little small engine here that couldn't shoot, you know, it's produced 8 championships over the years. So let's get that going back and get the fans and the city involved. We have had a tremendous fan base here over the years. Of course, we were only playing over in Evansville when we played the championships. So it wasn't that far for people to go, but really supportive. So that's my story. I'll still have an opportunity. Maybe some other day, if I have more time, I can give you a little bit more. But if anybody has any questions, you can ask me now since I'm the last one, if that's all right. Uh-oh, no. Yes, sir.
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you for everything you've done for the school. And these guys, I think that was an excellent speech that you gave, and I hope the team can take something from that. I just want to say thank you for everything you've done for me.
Thanks, sir. Love you.
I've actually been really excited to be able to ask you this, and I'm sure you've been asked this several times by now, but how does it feel to be the first man of color to brush fraternity on Cadence campus?
Well, you know, I have tremendous feelings, great feelings about it, because it opened the door to becoming the king of the campus during that, because I would have never gotten that, and my wife have been queen, if we had not been part of the fraternal activities. And I actually won the fat man's race because I was over 200 pounds, and I qualified for the semis. And we did the bounce the beats and everything. We had a great relationship, and as I said, those guys, we still maintain a relationship today. So it was beautiful. Although I will say that my dream would be to see the black fraternities come to campus and sororities come to this campus also. That would be fabulous to make that happen, because that's what this world is all about: diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you don't have that mindset, you know, we're going to continue down a rough path. Joel Levy, you just walked in. You got a question?
I don't have any question. All I have is thanks to God for you, Corey Crowder, and all these young men who came to Kentucky Wesleyan on faith and made it better. Just like you've made the world better.
Thank you, sir.
How was your success as an athlete helped you after basketball?
Everything I learned when I picking up that basketball and being involved in the athletics, the basketball specifically, there was something that I was able to, and still able to pull from. You don't know what it means as far as confidence in yourself until you have to challenge yourself against someone that is that's another great player. And you go in, whether you win or whether you lose, you come out of it with educated. You know, I learned more. I didn't lose very many here at Wesleyan. I learned more from losses than I did from wins. Wins, you tend to celebrate, beat yourself on the chest and so forth. Losses, you step back because it's humiliating, and you figure out, why did I lose? Don't blame it on somebody else. Why did I lose? What can I do to make this team better? What can I do to make a positive contribution to this team? Leadership and practice, you know? They used to get ticked off at me on our team because they called me example A. Anytime we were running a drill, the coach would always say, "Jennifer, get up here," and show how to do different drills, because I paid attention and I was dedicated to doing things the right way, and it paid off. I couldn't make a basket, couldn't hit a barn door, a barn door when I was a freshman. But by the time I was a junior, I was smoking. Didn't miss too many. Yes, sir.
So what would you say to athletes that are like on the edge about joining fraternity, so they be part of it and have that secondary closeness with another set of guys?
It's an individual decision, right? Fraternities are, from my perspective, great camaraderie, great, but basketball team has its own fraternity as well. It has. So it's an individual thing. It certainly can't hurt, but the dedication and what you need to do as far as your program is concerned, think of that first, and then think in terms of if you want to get involved in a social organization. Yes, sir.
If you could give the basketball team one bit of advice that helped you guys win 3 national championships and play for 4, what would that be?
Teamwork, working hard, leaving it on the floor, taking on challenges, listening to your coach, even though you're going to disagree with him sometimes and be upset with him sometimes, but he means the best for you, and just giving it your all, and when you're successful, reach back and pull others along with you. Reach back. Don't forget where you're going. Don't take that monkey on your back, but you want to give back and you want to help others be successful as well. So just working hard, Corey. It helps to have talent, but talent will only carry you so far. It's got teamwork. You got somebody's got to get the ball up the court, right? So you guards, you carry these big guys sometimes. I got one little guard who was my Tommy Hopgood, tells me every day he passed the ball to me. I would have never made it if it wasn't been for him. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
We really thank you for coming. I think it was worth it. It went a little over, but I believe we had such good speakers that I think you all enjoyed that time. So I feel like I have been educated, entertained, motivated, and I think you guys feel the same. So we really appreciate you coming, and again, I want to thank all of our speakers. Dr. Magnuson, Jeff Jones, and George Tinsley. We could give them all another hand.
Good morning. If you all are heading to the Athletic Hall of Fame, if you guys don't mind to exit this way and go out through the main lobby so that you can get your table and get checked in.